Well, hello everybody. So what you're seeing here are two old RCA VCRs made by Hitachi. So not long ago I uploaded my review video of this RCA here that I got from the recycling center. And in that video I talked about the different VCRs that Hitachi produced with this tape mechanism. So according to the time period they were made, they would use the same tape mechanism but with a different construction. So they will have different electronic boards and the components placed at different locations. So those are two examples of these VCRs that I was talking about. So my other RCA that I already had, so with the same tape mechanism but built a little later. So this one, according to the date that's written here, it will be made in 1987. And the other one, I don't remember seeing a date in it, but I'm guessing around 90 or 91. One thing we can notice is the size difference between these two VCRs. You can see this one is a little deeper, and it's also a little bit thicker. So the height of the VCRs, you can see it goes higher. And if we take a look at the front of these two VCRs, this one is like a more basic one. The front is more basic. This one has way more buttons on the front, including tape speed and input select. So the line button here. So those two things, I am very fond of this, as I've said multiple times in my previous videos. I like VCRs that have the input select and tape speed button on the front. So you don't need the remote to access these functions, which is cool. You have manual tracking on this one, and on this one you don't have tracking buttons. It has auto tracking. And on the inside, so there is a difference with the placement of the components and also the shape of the things. So it looks like everything's pretty much different except the tape mechanism. So power supply is different. On the two you have a big transformer like you have in the VCRs of that time period, so early 90s and before that. And the circuit board is a different shape on this one. So here you can see pretty much all the mechanism, and on this one it covers this part of the mechanism here, so where the loading motor is located, and the mode switch, which is right next to it. So it covers it. But on this VCR, this circuit board was really designed for being serviced. So I took it off before, and you just remove the two screws and remove clips, and you can flip it on its side. I will do it later in the video, and so you can flip it while the VCR is powered on. So that's good how it's designed. So nowadays the new appliances, they don't have a design where you will be able to see that it's designed for being serviced, except maybe the professional electronics, but the newer electronics, they are not really designed for being taken apart. So back in the day with VCRs, when you would have one that is defective, you will bring it to a repair shop, and well, nowadays you would rarely do that with your electronics. So unlike in the days of these VCRs, most of nowadays electronics are designed for being replaced and not repaired. And it was also the case in the late days of the VCRs. So nowadays we just have a different way of doing things. And while it might not be the greatest thing for the environment, because of course when you replace electronics, you throw them away and it produces more waste. But if we come back to the VCRs, this one is a 2-head hi-fi stereo VCR, and this one a 4-head mono. So hi-fi on VHS uses the drum to record these. So you have 2 extra heads on the drum for the hi-fi sound, and this might actually be a 3 video head VCR, like right here. I think you will have 2 heads that are one next to the other. it does look like it. Though it's pretty strange that it doesn't mention it on the front. So usually it will mention 3 head and this one 4 head. So you can see 180 degrees apart. You have 2 heads that are together. And you don't have other heads for the hi-fi sound. And one thing that this VCR has that this VCR doesn't is a real-time counter, which means that it will the time information will be read by this this head here, which is the audio and control tracking head. And since this VCR will rewind the tape unloaded, it will have an extra arm to keep the tape loaded on this head when it's doing fast forward and rewind, so it can read the time information. And this one just uses a 4-digit counter, so not a real-time counter. And that counter is you can see you don't have the extra arm. You don't have that arm that brings the tape to that head. So it's just detected by a rotation sensor below this spool here. So now I just disassembled this circuit board and flipped it on its side. And it is obvious that it was designed for doing that, because we can see that all of the cables are plugged on the left of the board. So you can see how the wire goes. So it just flips like this, and the VCR is turned on. And you have a full view of the tape mechanism. So now I will insert this tape, a VHS-C adapter. It doesn't immediately load. We press play. Stop. And eject. And so that's one big difference with the two VCRs. This one, it loads it instantly when you put it in. As you can see, it is on stop mode right now. And I just press play. So on stop mode, it keeps the tape loaded. And if I press fast forward, it unloads it on fast forward and keeps it loaded on this head here using this extra arm. I press stop and it loads it again. So turning off the VCR will unload the tape. So there is a worm gear here on the right side of the cassette front loading mechanism. It is driven by the capstan motor, so the same motor that turns the tape spools. And so concerning the older type of VCR with this tape mechanism that I talked about in the other video, with the circuit board that covers the entire top of the VCR including the tape mechanism, and that you have to raise it up to access it. I will put in the description the link to the video of the VCR fan 2001, who has a VCR RCA that is built like that. So I suggest you watch that video. So there's one more thing I wanted to compare, is the picture quality on pause and on fast forward rewind. So because of the difference of the video head, so 3 head and this one 4-head. So this one would be a 3-head VCR, and so now this RCA plugged it to the TV. And it starts playing automatically because there is a no tab here. I would put this tape here if I wanted to record on the VHSC, but I removed it. And it's the latest video that I had recorded on the VHSC tape with my VHSC camcorder. And if I press pause, so the picture is still pretty visible, but it's not as good as if you would press pause on a modern VCR from the early 2000s or the late 90s. Fast forward looks very good, so you don't see huge static lines like on 2-head VCRs. So that's one main difference with a 4-head. Fast forward and rewind looks more clean. On this universal remote, I press the pause button because there is no pause button on the front. I press the record button. Now the other VCR. So pause picture looks pretty good. You have OSD showing the 4-digit counter and the function. So for a VCR that I got for free at the recycling center, it's pretty good. It's working. And fast forward will look the same as a 2-head VCR. So this is a 3-head VCR, but it doesn't mention it on the front. Manual tracking. So on-screen display does not display when there is nothing plugged on the AV input or no video source. Some old VCRs do that. The newer ones will produce a blue screen, but this one doesn't. So this is the early days of the on-screen display. And some VCRs even have an on-screen display on-off switch. One of my VCRs, I know have it. It's my NEC, which is here. I press the record button again, it ejects the tape. So that's pretty much it for my VCR comparison video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you later in another video. Bye. So here on the RCA VR535, the RCA fashioned VFD display with its orange filter. This is what it looks like with the front cover removed. So you can see it's some sort of turquoise VFD display, and it goes through a orange filter